We want to turn to the situation in Ukraine for a moment. The president of that country, Wladimir Zelensky, says Russian forces now control 20% of Ukraine's territory. Moscow shifted focus to the country's east in April after failing to take the capital of Kyiv, and since then, Russia has gained ground. But while the bulk of the fighting is far from Kyiv, one prominent resident doesn't think Vladimir Putin is done with the capital just yet. Wladimir Klitschko is the brother of Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko. He's also a member of Ukraine's Territorial Defense Forces. We caught up with him a bit earlier. Hi, Mr. Klitschko. Thanks so much for making the time for this.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start off by asking you what life in Kyiv is like right now.
Compared to what it was 100 days ago, today is 99 days, tomorrow is going to be 100 days since the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian military forces, so-called special operation, ending up being special genocide of the Ukrainian population. And the city of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, was a ghost city just end of February, beginning of March. Now the life is coming back, so to speak. And it's definitely different than it was, as I said, beginning of March. But I cannot forget, I cannot forget that that this life, this so-called, I can say, so-called peace, is very fragile, and we could tell it with all the sirens going on and off during the day and night, and knowing how many rockets have been launched over Ukraine and flying all over the place in Ukraine, and that was launched from Belarus, not to forget, and Russia. So the peace is fragile, and we could feel it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask. I just wondered if you thought or what your sense is if Russia has given up on Kyiv permanently, or if you're concerned that they could make moves back any time.
According to international foreign intelligence, there are activities on the northern part of Ukraine, on the side of Belarus and Russia. And I'm more than sure that the capital of Ukraine is still the target of this invasion, because it is the capital. And obviously we're preparing. We're not waiting, we're preparing to protect the country, protect the capital as much as we could. We still need a lot of support. And I've been asked as well. I just came from World Economic Forum in Davos, and I've been asked, like, how much of help do you need? How much of financial help? How much of military equipment as help? And how much of humanitarian help do you need? I mean, Ukraine needs. I would say it's never enough as long as this war is still going.
And what is your level of confidence that countries like Canada, for example, or the U.S. or allies in Europe will continue to supply Ukraine with that aid?
It is very complex. The war itself very complex, but it's also simple to describe. Obviously, you're going to help and provide all the necessary help, humanitarian or military help. But we cannot forget how to fight the aggressor. We need to isolate economically Russia. Without isolation, they will get more oil in the fire, meaning if you still have trades with Russia, you're trading with Russia, their budgets are going to fill up to finance this war. So that's why let's just isolate eventually and stop trading with Russia and isolate Russia. Isolate not just economically, but all the different stages, because the world must show to Russia that the world, it's not just Ukraine, the world is against this senseless war and Russian aggression. And that must have consequences, hard consequences for Russia. Otherwise, they will not understand.
So what is your reaction then this week to Europe announcing an embargo of sorts, but not a full one, right? They're still going to take oil by pipeline. There are some caveats for countries that didn't want to completely cut off Russia. If they hesitate to go the full distance, which you know they say is understandable because of the dependence on Russian oil and gas, if they hesitate, though, to go that full distance, what does that mean for your country?
That means all those loopholes, so-called loopholes, where trades are still going on, coal, oil, and gas is not being banned and being taken by the other countries. So, as I said, we're putting some oil on this fire, and either all in, or we're not going to see peace in the world, not just Russia, because Russia has announced that Ukraine is just the beginning. Their propaganda has announced that Ukraine is just the beginning, and where the ambitions of Russia are going to be stopped. You know, the appetite is always coming more while eating. So I'm more than sure we, the free world, so-called free world, must stop Russia in Ukraine, and the sooner better. All in, or as I said, the consequence is going to be severe for the world. We must have peace in Ukraine. We must stop Russia in Ukraine, and that must happen now. 100 days passed, and those consequences that were promised to Russia, if they will cross the line and invade Ukraine, unfortunately been taken by the Ukrainians. Those hard consequences, because our infrastructure is getting destroyed, continue getting destroyed. Our people are getting killed. While we're talking, the fights are still going on, and we're getting murdered, tortured, raped. That must be stopped. And that's why this isolation, economical isolation, is extremely important to do it without any loopholes, without any excuses. We must do it and just hold it. Hold it for as long as this war is still going, as long as the Russian military boots are still on the Ukrainian soil. They must leave us in peace.
Mr. Klitschko, I'm going to leave it there. I do really appreciate you lending us some of your time today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.